All right, I know it's not me. That's what Donna says more than once. Let's bring in to discuss National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, what do you think? Do you believe her or not? Is this any kind of a smoking gun, so to speak, that she's involved?
Definitely not a smoking gun. And look, when I was listening to that, I thought to myself, you know, I get invited on your show as an analyst, but every single time I'm here, I feel like a student. That was impressive. That was a very impressive call by the undercover cop. He was just insistent. So, you know, he did everything he could to get it into a smoking gun, to get her to admit she was a cagey, wily woman, and she just resisted. She didn't do it. This was not a smoking gun. The jury might ask themselves, well, why didn't she call the police? But her defense attorneys can explain it away. Definitely not a smoking gun, but not good for her.
The police allowed to do that, to trick, to lie, to do their job. But it bothers me because he did take it so far, Michael.
Yeah, that becomes the question as you're listening to it. You feel like, should they be allowed to do this and go this far? But of course, yes, by law, they can do that, Mike. And I think the big thing here is not so much the words that she's saying, because I'll be honest, she's kind of convincing in saying, look, I don't know, except when you look at it in this context. If somebody gave me a piece of paper or called me, first thing I'm doing, Mike, is I'm calling Big Case Mike.
Yeah.
And I'm retaining Big Case Mike, and then I'm calling the police. Then I'm calling the police. She doesn't do that. I think that's really the point here that's being made by prosecutors.
That's a big point. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, I should have thought of it by myself, which is why didn't she call a lawyer? She should have called a lawyer. They had lawyers on retainer. She owned a dental clinic. She should have called a lawyer. That does show some sign of culpability, but she was a wily, very convincing woman. So I think this call might have done her good. I'm just shocked that the prosecution brought it into their case. I could think they had to bring it into their case, but she did not call a lawyer. She did not call police. That cuts against her, but she made no admissions on that call.
So listen, we were talking about that if you pick and choose parts of this, maybe it's a more compelling case in front of the jury. But the rule of completeness, I think if the defense said, we're not agreeing to that, play it all. There's nothing in it, play it all. I think it was brilliant because frankly, Michael, it makes it all muddled and confusing when you listen to all these different conversations, especially in the way they're being presented to the jury.
Yeah, I think the prosecution know that the members of the jury are human beings, and they're expecting hopefully maybe 1, 2, 5, 10 of them have a bad relationship with their mother-in-law, or they've had a nasty divorce and they did not like the interaction with their mother-in-law. As an attorney, I can tell you from experience that happens more than 50% of the time. So maybe they just wanted the jury to listen to this entire call and hoping that the momentum against mothers-in-law by some members of the jury would get them to say, well, this is a person who's a mastermind. We had these other emails, this and this and that. And so they just wanted them to see the whole thing. I like what you brought up, Judge Ashley, completeness. If I was a defense attorney, I would never allow snippets of one call or interview to be introduced to the jury. I would require that all of it be in there, and it would, and that's kind of what we're seeing.
No doubt about it. All right, folks, we're going to step aside here and take a break. All right, before we head back to court, I want to bring back in National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar to discuss. And Michael, as I think about this, and I think ahead in the prosecution's case, a lot of it's going to look like what we're seeing now. There's going to be no smoking guns. We're going to hear a lot of conversations. But at some point, we're going to hear about this trip to Vietnam. And they fought hard to get it in. They are going to be able to bring it in and call it consciousness of guilt. And as I look at that piece of evidence, I think that becomes more and more important in a case like this, because when we talk about, okay, I think something odd's going on, and then you get that information to say, well, why is she trying to go to Vietnam, a place with no extradition treaty, with a one-way ticket? That might put a juror or two over the edge.
1000% agree with you. That was the dumbest thing ever. People have to understand what it's like to be somebody like Adelson. You have attorneys on the ready. If they would have contacted a single attorney, and discussed this plan with us, this harebrained scheme, they would have told them, get on a boat, you're in South Florida, ride it to Cuba, you'll get the same thing. Maybe you could get away with it. Maybe if you get caught, you say, we're going for some drinks. Going to Vietnam on a one-way ticket with the spotlight they had was absolutely idiotic. I think it's gonna take it home for the prosecution.
Yeah, I do think that's the piece that's gonna do it. Now, hearing all of this, do you think either side would benefit from calling Charlie Adelson? We know he's been transported. We know he's at the local jail so they can bring him in. We know he's on both sides' witness list. Do you call him?
Judge Ashley, I was thinking about that. That's such a complicated thing. I don't think I'm intelligent enough to even answer that question. That's the most important question. Because here's the thing. We might live in a universe where Donna Adelson had nothing to do with this before the fact, but she found out about it after the fact. And then that would explain her behavior, and this was her son. If that's the case, that means she's living in the middle of a Shakespearean play. What's she going to do? Is she going to take the stand and say, I found out about it after the fact that my son and his girlfriend did it? You know, what do you do at that point? We really don't know, but that is such a complicated, important, incisive question. That right there is the case. I don't know. Her attorneys know. We don't know. It's a tough one. That's a big one, by the way.
It's a big one. I agree. I think he is unpredictable, Charlie. I think it's a risk.
And Charlie's appealing, so he may not want to talk.
And I think he'll take the fifth as a result. You're right. All right, let's get back into court, though.